What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this special breaking news live stream on For the People podcast. As you all know, generally speaking, we only stream on Mondays and Thursdays. But like I always say, if we have some news that has to be broken and it is that important, we will find a way to talk about it that day. And this is one of those streams, unfortunately. And it's for the worst of reasons. Before we get started, you can support the show by sharing and liking, of course. You can join our Telegram channel, which is in the description. The link to that is in the description. You can become a YouTube premium member by clicking on that link in the description or clicking join on the main YouTube page. And of course, you can also become a patron. All those links are in the description. So, like I said, today we have some breaking news, and it's unfortunate. But it's not just myself, but I've definitely been focusing and hyper focusing to a large degree on this issue because I felt like the signs were apparent. I kept saying that we're at a point where desperation is kicking in for Israel, and an animal is at its most dangerous when it is wounded. As you all know, for those who may be following me on Twitter or watched the video on YouTube already, or watched the video on Hotspot, the other day we covered the fact that Haaretz actually released documents that confirm Israel engaged in the Hannibal directive on October 7th. For those of you who don't know, the Hannibal directive is an order given by Israel where they attack their own soldiers. They attack their own. And they attack their own so that they can't be captured by Hamas. Now, it isn't like they're trying to do these particular individuals a favor. The reason that they don't want them to be captured by Hamas is because they don't want Hamas to be able to use those hostages in a prison exchange. And a lot of people don't realize that Israel even has the prisoners, or rather the hostages, because most of the Palestinian hostages being held by Israel have actually not been charged with anything, but have gone through a military tribunal. And that's just before October 7th. We know after October 7th, some of those prison camps have been even more egregious. What's taken place, the sodomy via electronic rods, having the men and the women sexually assaulted by animals. I mean, the list goes on. So when that article dropped from Haaretz, it wasn't just a journalist confirming this information. And it wasn't a situation where people could surmise based off of the information that the Hannibal directive was used. In this particular article, for those of you who didn't see it, the article actually says, the documents say, quote, Hannibal Arez, which is a location, right? Hannibal. And it used this word Hannibal multiple times. This is a huge problem for Israel, right? They already don't have the international community on their side. They've been running with this narrative of 1,200 people dying. Then it already came out that before, at least some of the Israelis that were killed by Israel, and they were saying, well, it might have been accidental. Now, with these documents confirming, these documents from the Israeli military being published in a publication out of Israel that actually directly contradicts some of the other content Haaretz has published, like content smearing everyone who talked about the Hannibal directive. And by the way, Haaretz also said the Hannibal directive did not exist because the chief of staff of Israel removed it in 2016. Yeah, it's different now. It's wide out. It's in the open. So now Israel has moved into final solution mode because they no longer, the plot, the propaganda, the narrative siege that they've been participating in since October 7th is falling apart. It's unraveling right in front of everyone. And I believe that Hannibal directive article was the nail in the coffin and they've decided to go nuclear. And what I mean by that is they came out and announced everybody needs to leave Gaza. Everybody needs to leave Gaza. That's what they said. And I don't feel like enough people are talking about this. But you can see it right here. Let me zoom in for you guys. Oh no, this isn't even it. Give me 1 second. This is another article. This is the confirmation from before, whenever the leaked documents from the intelligence community came out and confirmed that they had already had plans to move all of the occupants of Gaza to Egypt. Hell, and that was before, and they didn't, do a favor to Egypt by at least informing them that these were the plans. That's just another leaked document. But this right here, this is July 10, 2024, 6:31 a.m. This is from today. Israeli army urges all Gaza City residents to leave. It's right here, y'all. Israeli army urges all Gaza City residents to leave. This is the date, just in case y'all think I'm crazy. Just in case people think I'm hyperbolizing, because I know some people think that. July 10, 2024, 6:31 a.m. The Israeli army on Wednesday dropped thousands of leaflets on Gaza City, urging all residents to leave amid an intensified military offensive on the Palestinian territory's main city. An AFP journalist said the leaflets addressed to everyone in Gaza City set out routes out of the city to designate safe areas south and warned that the urban area would remain a dangerous combat zone as the army hits Hamas targets. Israel issued a first formal evacuation order for part of the city on June 27th and two more the following days. In the leaflet drop, the army said residents would be able to take two safe roads quickly and without inspection from Gaza City to shelters in Deir al-Bala and al-Zawiya. So, following the October 7th Hamas attacks, Israel said in January that it had dismantled the militant group's military structure in the northern city. Tens of thousands more residents have already fled Gaza City since troops launched the latest offensive in the city's eastern Sujaya district, and ground battles have since raged. The two latest orders covered central and western districts where tanks and troops have moved in this week. The army also said its forces had attacked militants inside Gaza City's vacated headquarters and the UN Agency for Palestinians. In other words, there is no where do they want them to go, guys? I know some people were like, "No, Gaza City, guys, there's nowhere else to go." They dropped leaflets in northern Gaza. They dropped leaflets in Gaza City. Gaza City is massive, like millions. Okay. They announced last week that they are annexing the entirety of the West Bank. They said Rafah was a safe zone. Yeah, they bombed Rafah. I don't know if y'all remember. Jabalia refugee camp, not that far from Gaza City, actually. Actually, I think Jabalia, if I'm not mistaken, might be in Gaza City. Don't quote me on that, but if it's not near it, it's in it. Bombed the refugee camp. So you think about it. In case you didn't know, Rafah damn near is as far south of Gaza as you can possibly go. They bombed that area. They bombed the middle. They're bombing the north. I don't know if y'all are doing the math here. There is nowhere else to go. They're forcing them into Egypt, or they're forcing them into into the water. That's it. Those are the two options. Oh no, excuse me. Or you can stay and die. They even started bombing is another safe zone. Was another safe zone. Give me a second. I'm gonna tell you what to say because Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis was another safe zone designated by Israel, guys. They bombed a school yesterday. So they're telling these Palestinians to go to safe zones where they are then bombed. And if they don't leave the area, they're still bombed. If they don't leave the area that Israel is telling them to leave, they're still bombed. If they go to Rafah, they're still bombed. Even if they're walking along the safe roads with no checkpoints, they're bombed and sniped down on the roads. Are we not like... So when you combine this news with the Hannibal directive news, with the news from last week that the West Bank, that Israel intends on annexing the entirety of the West Bank as punishment because 4 random countries decided to acknowledge Palestinian statehood, combined with the United Nations report, amongst many issues, the part where they were clear, since October 7th, for some reason, 500 Palestinians and counting have been killed in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas, where the conflict supposedly isn't supposed to be being fought, but Palestinians are dying anyway. And it's directly correlated to what's happening in Gaza. And it shouldn't be, but it is. Combined with the news that I just showed you guys, which I can pull back up in case some of you might have missed it. So we'll go ahead and bring this back up because it's important. This is from November 1st, guys. Leaked documents fuels concerns that Israel plans to punish Palestinians from, Israel plans to push Palestinians from Gaza into Egypt. An Israeli government document suggesting the mass relocation of Gaza's 2.3 million people to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula is fueling concerns about the possible ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. The leaked document, first reported in Israeli media, was compiled by an Israeli government research agency as the intelligence ministry and was dated October the 13th, only 6 days after Hamas led the deadly attacks on Israel and the Israeli government declared war against the Palestinian militant group which controls Gaza. What a lot of people should probably know is Israel didn't even have the decency nor the audacity to come out and deny it. They're like, yeah, we're coming up with some plans. They said that. Yeah. They're like, yeah, mm-hmm. The part that isn't mentioned in that particular article is they're like, well, we were going to pay Egypt. That was from November, guys. November the 1st. So now we got to ask ourselves a question. I'm going to ask that question. I'm going to read the super chat. We're going to get to that question. Super Seamster Sewing Show. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'm poor, but keep speaking the truth. Bakersfield, California. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Where's my members at? Sentient Dreamer, what's going on? Thank you very much. Sophia, what's going on? Thank you very much. Shout out to all the channel members. We are in a position where we have to ask ourselves a genuine question now. And I hope I don't get kicked off of YouTube for asking it, but it's a question. Now you got to ask yourself, did they want October 7th to happen? Not the Israelis themselves, but at least the Israeli government, at least Netanyahu and his little ragtag crew of psychopaths. You have to ask that question now. Because y'all know, if you've followed me for a long time, you know I'm a person that acknowledges patterns. I acknowledge patterns in reality. I do deal in what ifs, because if the pattern leads me to what if this happens next, then it's something we do have to reconcile. The reason I ask this is because I just read y'all an article that said this intelligence document that got leaked 6 days after October 7th already had a plan in place to move 2.3 million Palestinians. We found out because of that Haaretz article with the documents, the military documents that were released in that article, that the lieutenant colonel that was in charge of the security for the Nova Festival, first of all, he moved it from a safe location and then he moved it to the Gaza border. So, yeah, that's pretty important information. And then when the attack started at 7 a.m., he told them to fend for themselves. This is a fact. This is in the Haaretz article. So the military knew that the attacks were happening on October 7th, didn't show up to the Nova Festival until 3 p.m. Started at 7 a.m., didn't show up to the festival at 3 p.m. But the only reason the festival got moved, even though we know also the military had advanced knowledge that Hamas was planning this attack. But the only reason the festival got moved is because the IDF itself moved the festival to the border. Then, all of a sudden, hell starts breaking loose in the West Bank when supposedly this was about the hostages. Supposedly this was about Hamas. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. There are no hostages in the West Bank. But 500 Palestinians and counting have been killed in the West Bank. And they're about to annex every piece of it. Hiding behind October 7th. Hiding behind the defense of Israel. Then this UN report comes out. I mean, the list goes, the list is so long that you can't ignore the pattern at this point. It's like, if because Israel considers itself to be the most intelligent, the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus in the world. Matter of fact, most militaries consider Israel to be the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus in the world. So you decided to move this festival right in front of the Gaza border, knowing what was coming? And when we look at everyone who is attempting to justify this genocide, what do they always point to? October 7th, October 7th. Not even the facts of October 7th, to be real. What's weirder is the fact that they don't point to the facts of October 7th. They just try to get you to confirm their facts. Facts with big ass quotes. Because most of them not even, do you condemn October 7th? Do you condemn the actions of it? What? Well, you're not going to, or do you condemn the Israeli government for killing its own people on October 7th? We're not talking about that. We're talking about Hamas. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about Hamas, but shouldn't you also be talking about the fact that Israel killed its own people? I feel like that's a pretty important detail that we should consider. Right? But they keep bringing the focus back to what Hamas, they mentioned October 7th in the same way that we mentioned September 11th back in the day to justify everything that we did in Afghanistan and Iraq. Everybody knows that's why we use 9/11 in that way. We invoked it like religion to justify what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq. We got specials every time you had specials in the NFL shows, specials on television whenever somebody came back from deployment from Iraq, a place they weren't even supposed to be at, failing to mention how many innocent Iraqis and how many innocent Afghans died. Because why? Well, it had to happen. Why? Because 9/11 in our security. We have to defend ourselves. I don't know how our national security ended up all the way in Afghanistan and Iraq, but somehow. So we see the same pattern on October 7th. And you got to wonder, guys, you think Pierre's going to have a conversation about this? Because he gets so focused on the 1,200 people, that number has been significantly reduced. The 1,200 people, but the 1,200 people who died that day on October 7th. But he basically mentions, he never has a one-on-one conversation with the Zionists asking them to condemn the genocide. Isn't that interesting? He never has a one-on-one conversation with the Zionists for an hour, pressing them, impressing them. Okay, cool. So, because he could easily, the same way that he did with Roger Waters, for example. He pressed for Roger to condemn what Hamas did on October 7th. And then I got some problems with Israel. But anyway, let's focus more on Hamas. Is he going to sit down one-on-one with the Zionists and press them about every detail of this extermination? Like he's done with others? Like he's done with pro-Palestinian activists? Are we going to see Zionists come out? Because what has been the claim since the beginning from Zionists? They have been claiming that Hamas wants to wipe Israel off the face of the planet. That's been the claim. They said the real genocide is what Hamas wants to do to Israel. But ironically, Israel is literally announcing its plans to wipe out not just Gaza, but to wipe out the West Bank. And where the Zionists at? Zip, nada. Now they don't have anything to say. They continue to come up with other excuses to justify it. They continue to play victim. They continue. What's wild to me is how the Zionists that are playing victim the most don't even live in Israel. Imagine playing the victim to defend a country you don't live in to justify the extermination of innocent people from another country. That is pure psychopathy. They're psychopaths. These people think, they literally don't even live in Israel a lot of the time, most of the time. Not the people who are the loudest on Twitter. But they are playing victim to justify and defend the actions of another government genociding the people from another country. That is insane. But whenever the victimization falls flat, because all the claim that you make about Palestinians, all the claim that you make about Hamas, even the West Bank, you're like, oh man, they're trying to wipe us out. But no, it's actually your country that's doing so. It is literally your country making bold announcements about it. With Gaza City, that's basically the entirety of the north. That's it. There's nowhere else for them to go. But they would have gone to Rafah. Can't go to Rafah anymore. Khan Yunis was safe zone. Al Jazeera covered it yesterday. Now that's getting bombed. At first it was leave the north, go south. Then it was, well, you're not going far south enough, go to Rafah. There is nowhere else to go. Your options are try to sneak into Egypt, hope that you can swim, or die, people. What do you call that? That's what we call a genocide. Is that, I mean, I don't, that's what else do you call that? Guys, you know what Joe Biden said about this today? Nothing. Joe Biden's administration hasn't said a damn thing. They didn't say anything about the West Bank. Like literally Israel boldly came out and said, yeah, we're going to annex the West Bank for punishment. Because how dare other states decide to call Palestine a state? It's not, can't allow that to happen. So we're going to punish them. And they literally came out and said, there will be no two-state solution. And more specifically, we will never allow a Palestinian state. They said it. They were very clear. Smolrich, the finance minister, he's basically like the de facto governor of the West Bank. He came out and said it. He was very clear. So if you're annexing all of the West Bank and you're bombing and already selling property in Gaza, what else do you call that? I believe that's what we call a genocide. And so all you genocide deniers out there, guys, do you think it's a coincidence? Really quick. Do you think it's a coincidence that Facebook just came out and said they're going to punish, they're punishing people who use the word Zionist? Sure. I think I'm bullshitting. Let me pull it up for y'all. This literally just happened. Here we go. Meta expands policy to remove more posts attacking Zionists. Do you find it weird, guys? Do you find it weird that this is what happens after the West Bank news gets announced last week, after the Haaretz article gets dropped, where it gets exposed that Israel 100% for certain used a Hannibal directive to kill its own? Do you think it's a coincidence that this happens as they announce that they're evacuating Gaza City because they're about to bomb there? And now there's just nowhere else to go. And on the 9th of July, this comes out. Facebook and Instagram parent company Meta Platforms, Inc. will start removing more posts that attack Zionists when the term is used to represent Jewish people or Israelis more generally. They're literally providing a social media, worldwide, international safe space in the most specific of ways. Damn, man, ain't gonna lie, guys. As a black person, I'm a little pissed, bro. This is wild. This is wild. We don't get no kind of love. I literally, just for shits and giggles the other day on Twitter, I reported a post because somebody posted a graphic basically calling me the N-word. And it's like a bot, probably. Really don't really care because, whatever. Not like you would say it to my face. But I'm like, let's just see if X would actually take this as seriously as they do whenever someone is criticizing Israel. It says, sorry, man, this is not violate X's rules. People report the same on Facebook. This is not violate Facebook's rules. Oh, but if you use the word Zionist in a derogatory manner, not every time you use the word Zionist, just in this very specific way. You can get it removed. And what's crazy about this, it says it will start removing posts that attack Zionists when the term is used to represent Jewish people or Israelis. How often, ladies and gentlemen, do we say over and over and over again, we don't just mean Jewish? Hell, half the time we're not talking about Jewish people because not all Jews are Zionists. So there's that. But we don't just mean Jewish people when we say Zionists. And we damn sure don't just mean Israelis when we say Zionists. There are Christian Zionists. I am only recently learning that apparently there are actually Muslim Zionists as well, which is kind of creepy. It's just kind of interesting, don't you think? It says Meta usually removes posts that attack a person based on a protected characteristic, such as their race, nationality, or religion through political affiliation, though political affiliation doesn't fall into that protected class. While Zionism is considered by many to be a political movement to establish a former Jewish state in the Middle East, the company said that people are also using the term Zionist to refer to Jewish or Israeli people more broadly. That is a freaking lie. We will remove content attacking Zionists when it is not explicitly about the political movement, but instead uses anti-Semitic stereotypes or threatens other types of harm through intimidation or violence directed against Jews or Israelis under the guise of attacking Zionists. Meta wrote Tuesday in a blog post. Under the guise, no, that's insane, y'all. It's like, yeah, you're actually being anti-Semitic. You're just using Zionists as a word to attack Jewish people, even though you're very clear that you don't consider all Jewish people Zionists, and they're also clear that they don't consider all Jewish people Zionists. We know from video footage that we've seen with our own eyes that Zionists don't like Jewish people if they're not Zionists. But do you think it's coincidence? It is not. The wheels are spinning. They are losing the propaganda war. And now Zionists have added another layer of protection as they go through with their genocide. Sparky, thank you very much for the super chat. Hunter Kushner 24. Might as well be. Eric Huzo, thank you very much for the super chat. Capitalism steals land from people of Liana, Israel. Says, hold my drink, kosher wine. Man, look, I don't know if people are, it's weird. I know that people are still talking about Israel and Palestine, but I just to some degree feel like people are not really talking about it enough still. I feel like this way about Israel and Palestine, and the war with Russia and Ukraine, because of the global impact that both outcomes have. I feel like to some degree the war between Russia and Ukraine has fallen to the wayside. I talk about it often because I'm aware of like what the impact could be. But this Israel-Palestine situation, this situation with Gaza, the situation with the West Bank specifically, I just don't see enough people focusing a lot on it. People have not. I feel like, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but I personally feel like I'm one of the very few who keep talking about the West Bank. Because, I mean, I know the focus is on Gaza, but that seems to be the point, right? Is while they have people focused on Gaza, they're continuing the genocide and expanding the genocide in the West Bank, which is just more proof that the genocide is ongoing. And that is their goal. That is their quote unquote final solution. Sparky, there are many more non-Jewish Zionists than Jewish Zionists. There was a period where Hitler was a Zionist. Yeah, actually, that's factual. Actually, there are more because weird Christian cucks decided they wanted to, be more Jewish than Christian, at least be more Zionist than Christian in that particular regard. It's really kind of weird seeing people fight for for another power, for a foreign power, right? Calling themselves Christian nationalists while calling themselves a Zionist, like those two things are literally mutually exclusive. That is not hyperbole. They are literally mutually exclusive. You can't be a Christian nationalist and be a Zionist. It doesn't work like that. Words have meaning. Sentient Dreamer, thank you very much for the super chat. U.S. is killing so many by proxy, i.e. Israel. Yep, Israel, even in Ukraine. Really quick, man. I think that before we go, I want to watch with you guys this interaction with Aaron Mate on Piers Morgan. He was, I just, like I said, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. And the way that this interview was set up, as the Haaretz article drops, as NATO announces, not NATO, excuse me, as the Haaretz article drops, as the Israeli government announces annexing the West Bank, as they announce they need to leave Gaza City. And then all of a sudden, Piers invites on Aaron Mate with a bunch of Zionists. And the conversation was not, I'll make sure that was the right one. I think that was the right one. The conversation basically just Aaron being interrupted and Piers allowing it to happen. So let's check it out really quick before we go. There we go. Listen to this shit.
For a very long time from Israeli military sources and witnesses who reported seeing Israeli forces fire on them on October 7th. The difference is that now finally an Israeli newspaper, Haaretz, has acknowledged this and more Israeli military sources have come forward. The reporting from Haaretz says, according to one source, that the order was to turn the south of Israel, that frontier with Gaza, into a killing zone, which is exactly what happened. It underscores that Israel has no concern for civilian life, not just inside Gaza, but also its own people, because it did not want to have Hamas take.
I would take it even further. It doesn't just underscore that they have no concern for civilian life. It underscores that they are okay. They would prefer civilians dying if it allowed them to carry out their final goal, which is the complete and total elimination of all of Palestine. They're not just okay with civilians dying. You can make an argument that they're no different than the United States. If it means that they can achieve their final goal, then they prefer it.
Captives that could be used for negotiations to free Palestinian hostages, and that's been lost here. There are thousands of Palestinian hostages in Israeli dungeons, and a major goal of Hamas here was to take captives and use them as leverage to free Palestinians who have been in Israeli dungeons for years and years and years. And excuse me, I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you, despite your many falsehoods.
No, but what you're saying is disgusting.
Excuse me. I didn't interrupt you.
He said, what you're saying is disgusting. Bro, they're literally documents that Haaretz posted. Like what? I don't understand. It is disgusting. I mean, yeah, it is disgusting that Israel would kill its own people, pretend like they did it, and then try to smear everyone who exposed this fact months ago, only to then release documents confirming that we were right. Yeah, that is disgusting that they would move a festival from a safe area to the Gaza border, knowing that that could lead to the death of innocent people, their own people. That is disgusting. You can't be mad at Aaron for literally acknowledging the documents that y'all printed. But that's what propagandists do. He was at this moment, he's like, nah, I gotta say something. I gotta interrupt him. Because if he keeps going, it's going to expose too much. That is the whole reason this propagandist was invited on.
It's murder.
And you're whitewashing mass murder, which is the whole
He
point.
said that Aaron was whitewashing murder. In what way? In what way was Aaron whitewashing murder? He was being judicious, in my opinion. He said Israel was okay with the death of civilians. Shit, that's not the argument I'd be making. I'd be like, nah, they wanted it. They wanted it. That's the argument I'd be making, given the information that we have now. Given the communique where a lieutenant colonel, as the Nova Festival attendees were being shot down, literally saying to another IDF officer, let them fend for themselves. He's being judicious by saying that Israel has a disregard for civilian casualties. He's not whitewashing anything. If anything, he's emphasizing the fact that there were live laws and Israel is partially responsible. There's nothing to whitewash.
Of suppressing the truth about October 7th since it happened. We have not heard.
Oh, and I guess you are the bearer of truth, a Hamas apologist. You will tell viewers around the world about truth. A propagandist for Hamas, someone who spreads falsehoods and lies about Hamas.
But like, where did he lie? If anything, I mean, it came from your publication. It's Israeli documents about Israeli officers in the IDF. He ain't even mentioned Hamas. Why are you so upset? Is it because he's exposing y'all?
Apologizes for them and tries to whitewash.
Can you stop talking now? I didn't interrupt you. You're a propagandist for the Israeli military, which is a mass murdering entity. And the whole point of this October 7th propaganda and burying the truth that Israel killed its own people was to manufacture support.
Have you ever been in Israel, Aaron?
Yes,
have you ever been in Israel? Have you seen it?
I've lived in Israel. Yes, I've lived in Israel.
Have you been in the kibbutzim after October the 7th?
Yeah, he had to change it. I was like, hold up, I was about to say, Aaron, I think lived in Israel. Y'all see how he said, have you ever lived in Israel? Because that's what they always do, right? And you're like, yeah, bro. And I think that he might have even forgot that it's Aaron's dad, I believe, is a Holocaust survivor, or his parents were. And like, yeah, Aaron lived in Israel, so he had to switch it up. Oh, I mean, have you been to Israel since October 7th? Why? So y'all can assassinate him? We know what y'all do to journalists in Israel if they visit Gaza. We know what y'all do. But it's cute that you had to switch it up because you thought you were going to get him with, oh, have you ever been to Israel? Like, what does that have to do with anything that he's arguing? Why is Pierce inviting him on to speak? Why do you have a screen up with just those two going back and forth? And it's not even going back and forth. It's just this dude interrupting with bullshit and nonsense. Why is Pierce even allowing it to continue? Because he was told. He got the call. Y'all know how I feel. They get the call.
Have you been here? Have you seen the families?
Okay.
Have you met them?
Have you seen the families?
Have you met the hostage
Can you stop deflecting, interrupting?
No, because
I understand why you want to change the subject.
If you have any authority on the matter.
Okay, I speak as someone
who's concerned with facts. You speak as if you know anything. You speak as if you know Israeli civilians.
You speak as if you know Israeli civilians. He just told you he lived in Israel. He just told you that. Like, he's speaking as if he read y'all's documents. It's crazy. If you're going to be a military propagandist, right? If you're going to be a propagandist for the military, you got to at least know what your adversary is going to use in the argument. It seems like he was completely unprepared for this conversation. Like he didn't even read the documents.
Did on October the 7th.
I understand your job as a propagandist.
You haven't been here. You haven't watched Israeli civilians murdered by Hamas.
I understand you're doing your job, but I'm asking you to shut up now because I didn't interrupt you. You're a propagandist for mass murder, which is why you're trying to shut me up.
Just a
October. Excuse me.
Apologist.
Stop talking. I didn't interrupt you. I let you spew on for minutes. I did not interrupt you. Now, the reason why you went interrupt me is because I'm acknowledging the facts, which is that Israel did kill its own people on October 7th and hid that truth to manufacture support for its own mass murder campaign inside of Gaza, which has killed tens of thousands of people. That's the atrocity unfolding before our eyes right now.
Aaron, let me jump in here because, Aaron, let me ask you.
Goddamn, bro, we can't finish shit. They won't let Aaron finish a damn word. He got the propagandist, and then he's like, oh, you're not interrupting enough. So, Pierce, if Pierce going to do one thing, he going to interrupt you while you making a good ass point. You're like, let my man finish. God damn.
From their own admission, through the way they were live streaming a lot of the barbaric acts they were committing, that Hamas murdered many, many, many people that day. You presumably accept that.
So remember what I said earlier in the stream? I said, y'all notice how Pierce focuses on the this general number of many people. dying that day, the Israelis specifically dying that day on October 7th. But he will not have a Zionist on one-on-one in the same way that he has on like George Galloway, Roger Waters, Bassem Youssef, etc. He won't have a Zionist on one-on-one and press them. Why are you okay with them attacking people in the West Bank when the hostages are not in the West Bank? Why are y'all expanding territory after you just said this isn't a genocide? Because genocide isn't just killing. It's also pushing out, right? It's the elimination of a state. And that is what Israel's doing. Why doesn't he have them on to press them about the tens of thousands of lives in the same degree? Make them answer for every life, like he attempts to make pro-Palestine activists answer for every single life that's been taken, every single hostage that's been taken. He even tries to make Palestinian activists account for allegations that are usually disproven. Pierce is a propagandist. And that was the point of this. And it was not convenient, or it was not out of a coincidence that this episode dropped when it did.
There certainly were atrocities on October 7th. Yes.
Right. I mean, how many people do you believe Hamas killed and wounded?
Well, the point is there should have been an independent investigation.
How many people do you? How many people do you believe? Come on,
from the start, which Israel
I'm
has
sure people,
because
I'm just asking.
Aaron is trying to explain to him like, I don't want to tell you what I believe. I would like to tell you from the facts that are gathered through an investigation. And whenever Aaron's trying to elaborate on that point, Piers interrupts him again because he's like, shit, I forgot. Israel wouldn't allow the investigation. I got to interrupt him again. My bad. Zion Masters.
Logically, excuse me.
You're a journalist. You'd have seen all the same stuff as me, right? You'll have seen Hamas terrorists openly boasting about the horrors they were committing. It seems to me that it is.
Without a single mention of all the videos of the Israeli IDF soldiers boasting about the horrors that they were committing. It's just super interesting that he always forgets to mention that stuff.
It's indisputable that the vast majority of people who were killed that day were killed by Hamas.
How is it indisputable?
What is significant to me is the revelation.
You see how they make these bold claims? It is indisputable that the majority was killed. That they don't like based off of what we know. It is damn near impossible that Hamas killed all of the 1,200. And we know that's not true now. But first of all, the 1,200 number is actually disputed. But whatever. Say if we claim 1,200, right? It is literally impossible for Hamas to have committed some of the destruction that happened that day. They don't even have the artillery to do what those Apache helicopters did, with those artillery rounds from the IDF did. I mean, they also can't make a call and say, Hannibal, like Peyton Manning calling the damn play in NFL. Ran off with three. Hannibal, hot. Except for say that like 15 times, because that's basically what happened. How can you make such a ridiculous claim without even trying to present evidence? Unless you're a propagandist. And why are you so focused on that? And why do you have this constant refusal to acknowledge or even pretend that you value the lives that have been lost since?
That this Hannibal directive was issued means that there was clearly some people on the Israeli side who were killed by Israeli forces as part of this open fire without constraints, even if it imperils the lives of Israelis.
No. You see what he did it again, boy. I'm sorry I keep stopping this shit, but y'all know, man, I can't let it slide. Y'all see what he did? Do you see what he's like? This Hannibal directive, which means opening fire even if somebody could die. That is not what the Hannibal directive is. The Hannibal directive is go kill that Israeli to make sure he can't be taken hostage. Kill him. That is what the Hannibal directive is. It isn't an accident. It isn't like an excuse for collateral damage. It is a directive to kill an Israeli with Israeli artillery to make sure the Israeli cannot fall into the hands of Palestine. Come on, bro. But you see how he did that? He's like, oh, he tries to fake acknowledge it, and that's on purpose. He's trying to manipulate his audience into thinking it is not a directive that is it's not an order to kill an Israeli. I mean, when you distill it down to its purest form, that is what the Hannibal directive is. It is an order for the Israeli military to kill other Israelis. And he's like, oh man, it could just be, it's just, this Hannibal directive, that's a thing that sometimes if you fire into an area, civilians get killed. It's just collateral damage order. No, that's not what it is. Let's get this.
I don't think we know yet what the split is in terms of numbers.
Oh, now we don't
But
know.
I think to try and pretend, I mean, you accuse Jonathan Conricus of deflecting, but to try and pretend that the vast majority of people who were killed and wounded that day were not killed and wounded by Hamas would also be a deflection of the truth, wouldn't it?
It would be a deflection of the truth to insist without evidence that the vast majority of people were killed by Hamas. We don't know because there has not been a credible independent investigation, which Israel obviously wants to stop. Now, think of it logically here. Certainly, yes, Palestinian militants committed atrocities on October 7th. But think of it logically. If now you have confirmation from an Israeli newspaper and Israeli military sources that a directive was issued to turn that area into a...
You know what's crazy? Aaron is not a fast talker, right? He doesn't like doing it. If you watch his interviews, you know. If you watch his shows with Max, you know. He's being forced to talk so fast right now because they will not shut the fuck up and stop cutting him off. This was supposed to, and I'm glad Aaron's taking their ass to school, but this was supposed to be them jumping on Aaron to give cover to Israel. And I promise you, y'all, with 100% certainty, it's because they knew with all the news that was about to come out this week and what came out last week, they knew like we got to get somebody on here that we can bully. Because Aaron's kind of a soft-spoken guy, but yeah, I'm happy that he's not putting up with this shit. I'm happy he's not capitulating because sometimes Aaron can be a little, not wishy-washy, but he can be a little bit too judicious when it comes to playing both sides. And I'm glad right here he's like, nah, bro, we're not doing this game.
Killing zone. And to achieve that goal of preventing anyone from crossing back into Gaza. Excuse me, that's exactly what Howard supported. I didn't interrupt you. I'm going to finish my sentence.
No, that isn't what was said.
Excuse me, if that directive is, that's exactly what it says. It says,
why isn't it?
Excuse me. That's what it says.
Like, bro, Piers, he's answering Piers' question, and this dude interrupts him, and Piers was like, won't say anything.
Online afterwards.
Well, the fact that it says so in Howard doesn't make it true. And if you're citing a source, please be specific. And it's a matter of real consequences.
I did in your mind.
Bro, hold up. Is he only getting one side of the interview? Is he not? Is his earpiece broken or something? He's like, if you're gonna make claims like that, you should at least cite the sources to be specific. And Aaron was very fucking specific, guys. I don't know how much more specific can you be?
The directive was to turn it into a killing
Israeli military source.
Isn't correct.
All right, well, hang on. Okay, hang on, please.
He's interrupting.
When you talk over each other, it's very hard to keep up with it. Let me bring in Gideon. Let me bring in Gideon because Gideon.
I'm going to finish my sentence.
Finish your sentence. I'm going to go to
Tell him, Aaron.
If one of the most sophisticated militaries in the world is employing a directive to turn the area into a killing zone and using its weapons of war, including Apache helicopters, then it's very plausible to assume that, yes, a large number of people were killed by Israel's own forces.
Yes, 100%. Fuck Piers Morgan, bro. I can't stand that guy, bro. I can't stand him. And I know I've been covering a lot of Piers Morgan's interviews lately, but like, it's probably my whole ADHD autism thing, focusing on how ridiculous he is. It's because I feel like he's like one of the worst kind of people, guys. Like, he goes through this exercise now where he's like, I actually sympathize with the Palestinian cause now. I can recognize where people have decided to call it a genocide. But he says that for 2 seconds, but then spends an hour pressing pro-Palestinian activists, like, so that they could take credit or be accountable for things that didn't happen, assumptions that he's making, and basically propaganda that pushed Israel. You see how just in that situation, he didn't come to the defense of Aaron. He came to the defense of the Zionists who brought up not a single factual point, gaslighted Aaron to the point where you might consider buying a Tesla if you weren't worried the government was going to take your car over and crash it into a damn peninsula. Gaslight the hell out of Aaron. Just beep, beep, beep. And what Pierce do? Anyway, yeah, I know that everything that this dude just said was bullshit, but Aaron, let's focus on your points again. I know you're the one who provided the facts. You're the one who provided the evidence. But Aaron, let's talk about your points and why I think you're wrong. I know he just called you a propagandist. I know he just called you a liar, brought into question your credibility. But let's talk about you, even though you're the one who saw the facts. Come on, bro. We're going to read these super chats and get up out of here. Italian Stallion, thank you very much for the super chat. Why do you think no one's getting directly involved? I know Russia and Iran send weapons, but that's about it. So it's important to remember that Lebanon actually, so Hezbollah was trying to get involved, but now Israel's going into what it looks like preparing for a full war with Lebanon. So that's going to occupy them. Russia, I actually talked about this before. Russia has not gotten fully involved, and it's because of Ukraine. Because we have to remember, Russia's not only in the process of fighting Ukraine on that front, but they're also helping Syria, right? So, and other countries in the Middle East, and actually, they're actually helping other countries in Africa too. So, Russia, in my opinion, doesn't want to overextend. The United States and NATO, in my opinion, are fully aware, in Israel as well, they're fully aware that Putin is cognizant of the circumstances and is a strategist. Putin will not overextend his military for this situation. And that's just the unfortunate reality of it. I think that part of the reason he wants a quick resolution is because he knows that that is his next battle. And he also knows if Iran does get directly, if one of the big, not Syria, it won't be Lebanon, it won't be Syria, but if Iran gets directly involved, then there will be, there's not going to be any choice. He's going to have to send some of his people down there. So I've said for a while now that I think that what will eventually happen once the war with Russia and Ukraine concludes, which the U.S. and NATO does not want to happen, but it will. I just believe it. Once it concludes, Russia's going to get involved with Israel. I firmly believe that because he doesn't like Netanyahu. Also, he's turning the Middle East upside down. Also, Syria is Russia's ally. Russia spends a lot of money and sends a lot of people down. There's a lot of weapons down to Syria to help fight the terrorists that the United States puts there. Right? So I believe, and then of course, Yemen is doing its best in the Red Sea. They can't make that move all the way over there. They have their own issues they have to deal with. And if the Houthis get too aggressive, they can find themselves a little bit overstretched as well. So that's why I believe that that group, that's why I believe Iran they partially probably didn't start a full scale war because they knew they were coming into an election year and they couldn't afford the division. They couldn't afford to be dealing with a war while simultaneously dealing with an election, because that creates an environment that the United States and the West can take advantage of to try and overthrow their government. So I think that's part, but I do believe that there's a high likelihood that Iran will probably get involved again. I just don't know when. Maybe after the cabinets are settled in and all that good stuff, but they have a new president now and all that. So I think they could get involved. But the point that I think is important to make is that we're only talking about 4, 5, 6 countries. When we live in a world full of Western nations that are constantly talking about never again, when it comes to things like 9/11, when it comes to things like the Holocaust, when it comes to things like the Armenian genocide, right? They're always talking about never again, and yet here we are again. But it's even different. It's even worse this time. Well, actually, I'm not entirely confident that the U.S. didn't fund the Armenian genocide. That's a different conversation for a different day. But at this particular juncture, it's worse because there is hard proof that the Western countries, in large part, have been funding this genocide, have been defending this genocide, have been speaking out and demonizing those who are being murdered. Right? So it's worse than like a never again situation. This is Hell, not only is it happening again, but we're ensuring it. We are funding it. It probably wouldn't be happening if we didn't allow it to start. And yet here we are. All these countries around the world that have all this capability, and everyone is either too terrified to put Israel in its place, or they're directly funding it. Also, probably because they're too terrified to put Israel in its place. And I think that it probably doesn't hurt to mention the fact, Epstein didn't kill himself. Probably doesn't hurt to mention that fact, right? We know what those tapes were about. I don't think it's coincidence either that more Epstein information dropped as Israel's about to go into, because that happened during the Rafah situation. It seems that every time they're about to do something crazy, Israel's about to do something crazy, some random information about Ghislaine Maxwell or Epstein drops just to remind the politicians around the world, hey, we know that your elections are relying on you potentially calling out this genocide, but don't forget Epstein. They randomly brought up the information about that judge releasing some documents from 2008, I think. Like that just came out of nowhere. Coincidentally, it's like they're reminding people, hey, don't forget. Eric Uzo, thank you for the super chat. You ever heard of red heifer sacrifice? No, I have not. Christian Zionists need Jesus bait. Christian Zionists need Jesus for real. Jesus Christ. It's crazy that you can be a Christian Zionist because Christian in the strictest sense means Christ-like. You really believe that Christ, who went around threatening kings for doing this type of shit, would approve of what they're doing? That is insanity. Being a Christian Zionist, like I said, that does not compute. That math don't math. That is pseudoscience. I don't know what else. It's dumb. They're mutually exclusive. Sparky, thank you very much for the super chat. When I was a kid, I'd sometimes hear fundamentalist Christians call Jews Christ killers under their breath and criticize Israel. Now, after decades of Israeli outreach, the same group are Zionists. That is true. I used to hear that. It was like kind of like a joke in my school back in the day because there was only like 2 or 3 Jewish kids in my school. And only 2 of them were secular, really. But there will always be like a joke, like, yeah, whatever, Christ killer, like literally, or Jesus killer. And it is kind of weird that now, I lived in North Carolina, guys. It's like a military town in Fayetteville. That's where I went to high school. So it's weird to see so many Zionists, but it kind of goes back to me, a lot of Christian nationalists or Christian fundamentalists, being a Zionist is just another excuse to be anti-Muslim. You get what I'm saying? So like we have to take that into consideration as well. Christian Zionists such as your man Pompeo are willing to sacrifice their own countries for Israel. They want to accelerate the apocalypse and need Israel for the second coming of Christ. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing, man. That's what they keep saying. Christ's going to take a little bit. Christ's going to do 1 or 2 things. He's going to take a little bit longer to come because I wouldn't want to come here with this bullshit either. But he might take a little bit longer, or when he gets here, if you believe in that, if he's not, I'm actually the type of, I believe Revelations is actually a philosophical inevitability. I know that's very complicated and I can get into that another day. Maybe that's a Mimosa Monday topic. Y'all remind me later. But I believe that Revelation is the reason that it is used in the Bible, because a lot of things are used in the Bible, like, for example, the Great Flood. They use real events and they take away real stories in one form or another from other cultures, because that makes your overall lie a lot more believable, right? So the Great Flood, where they acted like, or they proposed it as like it was a flood of the entire world. It was just the flood of Mesopotamia. And that is a real thing that actually did happen, right? Talking about the pharaohs of Egypt like that in the slavery, like that's true. Now, the people that supposedly claim they were enslaved, that part I'm researching more into now because I don't really believe that part. But the pharaohs and the slavery and things like that, obviously that part is true. So I believe that Revelations is real, right? But it's because it is a circumstantial, cyclical inevitability, right? if you actually read Revelations, you take out all the fantasy stuff, right? All the storytelling, it is literally just a accumulation of circumstances where everything is so bad now in the world that you can't scapegoat your neighbor. So it talks about the 1/3 of the sea life, I believe it is, like 36 or 37% of the sea life will be extinct. We've arrived at that point, right? Talks about your food being poisoned. We've arrived there already. That's years ago. Earth being scorched, sun being covered in smog. I mean, the list goes on. It's like literally all the things that the world is experiencing at the moment. And so what happens is if you're a farmer, right, and your crops are being poisoned, or if you're a fisherman and your fish are being killed, right, you can scapegoat the other people if they're doing well. And you feel the need to because like it can't be your fault. So you feel there's jealousy, there's ego, and there's scapegoating. What we see now, actually, to a large degree. But now, if all of us are suffering, well, damn, if you're suffering, that can't be your fault and my fault. There must be something else going on, and that's the revelation. The revelation is that the elite are the problem, because 9 times out of 10, it is the elites that are the problem. So the revelation is that it is not your neighbor that is causing your problems, and because your neighbor is successful, that does not mean that their success is indicative of your failure, nor the cause. The revelation is that the elites are the problem. That is basically what Revelations is in a nutshell. For some reason, Revelations in Christian culture, if you've ever gone to church, right, it's spoken about in a positive way to some degree because it talks about the return of Jesus. But the tone of Revelation is always, for some reason, pitched as negative, even though the word revelation in and of itself there's nothing negative about a revelation about something. If you've had a revelation, that means you've gained new knowledge, right? Something has been revealed. So that is a philosophical certainty and a societal inevitability. And that is why the Bible uses it. And it likely has something to do with the age, the era, the change of the astrological eras. For example, we just left the age of the Pisces, which ironically, y'all know, if you know Jesus' symbol, that was the fish, like Pisces, a fish. Jesus' symbol was a fish. Jesus was born, from what we understand, during the age of the Pisces. He was born and he died at the age of the Pisces. And in the Bible, don't quote me exactly on what he says, but there's a scripture that actually talks about it's like, how do you know when you will return? Basically, when the next era will start. And it says a man will come in carrying water, which would be the age of Aquarius, which is what we've just entered. So the age of the Pisces was actually the age of dogma, religion, blind faith, which explains how Christianity, Catholicism, the church, what we're dealing with now is Zionism, how it's gotten so out of control. For whatever reason, the universe decided that was what was necessary for us to get to where we are now, which is the age of information, the age of revelations, the age of enlightenment, right? And every 2,000, I think it's like 2,100 years or something like that, more or less. Like we always have a new change in age, astrological era. And that is what, and every culture talks about it in one form or another. Every culture brings up these events happening in one form or another. So that's how the Bible knew we got to talk about this, because if we're going to bring other people into the fold, we have to talk about stories that are believable, like the Great Floods. People who experienced that, or they have family members, or they've read stories about it. They could talk about political overthrow, poisoning of crops, like all these events happening at the same time. So for all we know, this new version of Jesus, the reincarnation of Jesus, if you will, the new avatar, right? There is a possibility he's already here or she's already here, and just looking is, they don't even know. They don't even know. But I'm taking notes. There's a good possibility that the person doesn't even know who they are. I have this super crazy shroom theory that the person is black And part of the reason that so I don't know if I know, but there are a lot of countries that actually have like astrologists or numerologists like that work for the government. So India is one of them I could think of. You get a PhD in astrology and numerology in many countries. It's like some of the most difficult math you can do. It's not like, oh, we look at the stars and you look at your horoscope. No, that shit's hard. You can get a PhD in astrology and numerology. But a lot of governments won't make decisions without consulting their astrologists and numerologists. But I have a theory that our government, and if you look at some of the occult stuff that our government is partaking in, it makes a lot of sense. But our government has some idea of who it could be and where they would be born, et cetera, and what race they would be, what the likelihood of what race they would be. And one of the reasons that they started assassinating leaders in broad daylight and making it so that, because you got to think about it, the way that they assassinated Martin Luther King, the way that they assassinated Malcolm X, the way they assassinated Fred Hampton, especially, it was in the most grotesque, audacious way possible. It was literally, we want you all to know that we're the ones who killed them. It is either, in my opinion, it was born out of a fear that those particular individuals could be this next Messiah, if you will, right? Because you're talking about three very intelligent men, three men who were extremely talented, very well spoken. But once again, the difference between Malcolm, Martin, and Fred Hampton was very unique in his ability to win people over. They were all unique, obviously, but what Fred Hampton was able to do was special in and of itself, being able to bring racists or white nationalists together into the fold with Black Panthers and have them work together on class issues instead of focusing on the culture wars and race. That was special in and of itself. But he was 21 years old when he died. Not when he started his activism, not when he helped to found the Black Panthers, not when he started his organizations, not when he started organizing, but when he died, he was 21. When they ran into his fucking house and killed him, he was 21 years old. And it was the audaciousness of it that made me later on in life think like, they had to know something that we don't know. Like the government had to know something. And it's like they were trying to, so they either thought that one of those three could be the next guy, right? Or they were trying to scare the person who could be in the future. Because if you see that they can kill Fred Hampton without being accountable, kill Martin Luther King without being accountable, kill Malcolm X, and the list goes on, right? Of all these young Black leaders who were killed by the government. Everybody knows it. Hell, even and JFK, for that matter, RFK. Once again, the list goes on. If you see that they can be killed without being accountable, without the government being accountable, it would scare you from becoming who you're supposed to be because of that fear. That's my theory, is that they were trying to scare whoever the hell that was. Because if y'all don't think that the government deals in astrology and uses numerology, y'all need to do some research. They do. They do. Our government is fully aware of what all the other governments participate in. And most of the world's governments have some type of astrologist and numerologist that they consult with. So there's a good possibility that whoever this guy is already sitting here, or whoever this woman is already here just looking, that's okay, Israel, got something for you. Just saying. Eric Huzo, the Hannibal whoopsie. Yeah, that's kind of how Pierce pushed it, huh? The Hannibal accidental directive. You know, we accidentally kill our own people on purpose. Sparky, cars burnt with Hellfire missiles were buried quickly, bodies and all, with no forensics examination or investigation to cover up the fact that over half of the Israelis killed on October 7th were killed by Israel. Yep. Well, you know, we can't say there wasn't an attempt to investigate. There were plenty of attempts to investigate. It's just that Israel wouldn't even let CNN come in. They wouldn't let anybody come in. Really. Even their own propagandists. BBC was so pissed. You know what they decided to do? Yep, since y'all don't want to let us in, we're going to do a whole investigation on your fucking Al Shifa hospital lie. BBC was pissed. I know y'all remember that. I couldn't believe when BBC came out and was literally doing journalism because of God. You know, it's BBC. We don't expect that out of the BBC anymore. But you know, like it's kind of like how CNN right now is all of a sudden doing investigative journalism. Not just CNN, New York Times even. They're doing investigative journalism about Joe Biden because liberals and their billionaire donors are pissed. So now all of a sudden we're hearing about the Parkinson's expert that came out in January and went to the White House several times. And now they're interviewing actual Parkinson's experts that are acknowledging that Joe Biden does have Parkinson's disease. Like they're doing journalism finally, right? I actually saw somebody tweet out because they were so pissed that New York Times was doing journalism. They were like, cancel your New York Times subscription. Not because of the headline being false, but because the headline was actually true and they actually did investigative journalism. So it's always funny to us whenever we see that, and you know that publication is pissed at you as an elite when they actually start to do investigative journalism work, when they actually assume their role as the fourth estate. And BBC was pissed because that Al Shifa investigation was bad. It made Israel look horrible. So, yeah. So people try to investigate when they do, but, you know, Israel, for some reason, wants to cover it up. Sparky, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia are playing it cool about Israel as long as they can so it doesn't interfere with BRICS getting off the ground. You know what? I can see that. That's actually a very astute observation. I didn't even think about that, but I don't know about Russia. I think Russia is playing it cool because of everything that I said earlier, but also partially BRICS could have a part to play in that as well because countries seem to feel comfortable joining BRICS because of Russia. It isn't even really China that is doing the best job getting people enrolled. People are seeking the approval of Russia. Whenever Russia gives the green light, everyone else feels comfortable. By the way, I don't know if y'all saw, there's some breaking news. Saudi Arabia. So some NATO powers decided they wanted to withhold some assets of Russia. I want to say like 300 billion or something to that extent. Was it 300? Yeah, I think it was 300 billion. If 300 billion or 300 million, one of the two. And Saudi Arabia threatened every single country that threatened Russia. Came out and straight up said like, okay, y'all try that if you want to. Got something for you. So, yeah, that's what BRICS is for. It's real. The alliance is real. Saudi Arabia joining BRICS is real. This petrodollar situation is a problem. Not for BRICS countries, but for everybody else, yeah. Saudi Arabia drew its line in the sand. It said it will defend Russia. So, regarding BRICS, Israel now is also faced with another issue. So is the United States, but principally Israel at this moment. If all of the countries, because India is now, so Russia met with India recently. Putin met with India, which pissed off the U.S. Putin met with India. Putin met with Kim Jong-un. Putin already got Saudi Arabia to sign up. Putin's been on a world tour. He only got a couple more years left in office. Putin is way older than I thought he was, man. He just looks great for his age. I need to figure out his diet, exercise routine. But he is securing Russia's future right now. You can tell. And he is securing the multipolar world. And Israel, while they're acting as if they're a wounded dog, and there is a reason for that. They're dangerous because of it, right? Like we can't disregard that, but their time is coming. Israel's time is coming. Eric Huzo, the 4 horsemen are on their way. The 4 horsemen can't get here fast enough, man. Hey, but what's crazy is it would be wild if the 4 horsemen was a metaphor for like Russia and Iran and China. Who would it be? Russia, Iran, China, maybe Syria. Who knows? I don't know. It could be Syria or Lebanon. I don't know, but I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I'm not a religious man, but I'm a philosophical man. I'm a spiritual, and I do believe in patterns. So that's going to be it for this episode, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment For the People podcast. Like I said, you can support the show by liking, sharing. You can also support by becoming a member, where you get premium content, exclusive content here on YouTube. We have several different levels, and we already started posting some exclusive content there. Make sure I go check that out. Or you can become a Patreon member. That link is in the description, or become a premium member on Rockfin. Once we hit 20 premium members on YouTube, we will start doing our exclusive YouTube and Rockfin premium streams. Make sure y'all go follow us on Twitter. Y'all didn't tell me, by the way, that my Twitter link was out of date, and I'm upset with y'all because I'm over here. I gave y'all a broken link. The link on my YouTube Twitter is old, and no one said anything. I'm holding y'all accountable. Okay, I fixed it though, so you can click at the little Twitter black thing in the description, and you can go to my Twitter to follow me there. And also make sure y'all go follow Hotspot on Twitter at Hotspot on Twitter. Follow For the People podcast on Twitter. You'll see it. I retweet it all the time, so you'll see that there as well. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Oh, hold on, we got one more super chat. Well, I'm glad we stuck that in there, Spark. Appreciate you, Sparky. Not withhold assets, steal them. Righteous of the Saudis. Yes, he's correct. That yes, they wanted to steal the assets of Russia. Yeah, you know what? That's what you're right. You're right. Not withhold assets. They steal it because they're trying to use it as like, oh, we're withholding it as a punishment. But the reality is, these countries are broke as hell, and Russia isn't. Russia's doing just fine. So they have to come up with an excuse to steal. They have to come up with an excuse to steal. So good point, Sparky. Thank you for clarifying that. So yeah. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and tomorrow, one more thing. And one more thing from my Jackie Chan Adventures fans out there. JB from RBN will be on the show tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure y'all come by tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a great show. Love rocking with my guy, JB. This is actually going to be the first time that JB has been on my show. I've been on JB's show several times, but this is going to be the first time he's come on my show. We always have scheduling conflicts. If you know about JB, what he deals with health-wise, his commitments to that, and then RBN, we've always had scheduling conflicts. So I'm really excited to talk to my guy. It's going to be great. We got some other potential interviews coming up that I think that y'all going to really enjoy. And I'll talk about those a little bit later on next week. But yeah, guys, it's what a time to be alive, man. What a time to be alive. We're gonna have a lot of conversations. Got a lot more time to talk to y'all. And I'm really excited about it. And appreciate y'all. Keep subscribing, keep sharing. Shout out to the new subscribers. Y'all go check out some of those clips that we posted already. Go check out some of the shorts that we posted. But always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.